Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 375. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just kind of some miscellaneous stuff that I've picked up over the past month or so, maybe a little bit longer. Some of this is brand new stuff, some of it is actually really old stuff that's new to me. So, yeah, we're going to cover a lot of ground here. Um, I assume most of you would probably be interested in the new stuff, so we'll dive into that first. And then if you want to stick around for some of this old stuff, you can. So a lot to cover, so we'll get right into it. Now, I was actually planning on doing this episode tonight um, with just the stuff I already had around. But I got a call from GameStop today saying that some pre-orders had come in, which was a little unexpected because most of these items weren't expected until August, maybe even later. So it kind of surprised me that they showed up so soon. Sorry, I just had to ditch the glasses. It's so humid down in this room right now that my glasses are starting to fog up. Yeah, it's really hot down here, but I'll make it through. Anyway, so I went to GameStop today to pick up 3 pre-orders. But when I got there, there was another item that I picked up as well. This was an item that I wanted to pre-order, but by the time I had learned that it had went up for pre-order, it was already sold out. So yeah, I was debating on ordering it from somewhere else. I don't think it was available to show up on Amazon because it was some sort of exclusive. So yeah, I didn't know if I'd be able to find it anywhere else. But I went into GameStop and there it was. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. This is a Transformer set, and you can see here it's got 2 kind of unnamed troop builders. It's got the Elite Seeker and the Ground Soldier. So it's got like a jet and a car guy. Now these characters are from the Transformers video game, Transformers Devastation. Um, and I think the reason these characters exist, I've never played Devastation, but I think when you play as like Optimus Prime, you need, hordes and hordes of characters that you can just slice and slash your way through before you fight the big boss. So they took 2 like established designs, like the Decepticon Seeker Jet, and just made like an unnamed character. So I love the Seeker Jets. I don't care so much about the car here, the Ground Soldier, but I really wanted this black Seeker. So yeah, I was really glad to see that it had just showed up on the shelf there, so I was able to get it. I'm not going to talk about this in detail today because I've got a bunch of Transformers that I want to talk about in a separate episode. So if you want to know more about this, stay tuned for probably my next episode. But I'm going to set this aside for now. Now, as for the pre-orders that I did get, these were 2 Street Fighter figures. Um, this here is Blanka. Now, I don't know if you can really tell from me holding it up here. I've been collecting these Street Fighter figures for the past like 2 years or so since they started coming out. They all come in these cool little boxes that look like arcade cabinets with the little like buttons, and you can see by the shape of it, it's supposed to kind of look like an arcade game. These boxes are substantially bigger than the ones we had got previously because this is like a deluxe figure. So yeah, I would say it's probably 50% like wider and taller than the old boxes on all the other figures. So yeah, I wasn't sure when this figure was going to come in. There was no release date available on the website. I just knew that a pre-order was placed and that it would show up eventually. So yeah, showed up today. So there we've got Blanka. You can see he's got an alternate head, some alternate hands, and some really big blast effects for his special move in the game is he crouches down and he gets like electrified with all this lightning coming off of him. So it looks like it's got these translucent lightning effects. I'm going to open him up in a minute and we'll take a look at him in a little bit more detail. But the other Street Fighter figure I got, also deluxe. This here is Sagat, or Sagat. I can't remember how you pronounce it. I think it's Sagat. This wasn't a figure I necessarily was planning on getting. When I first started collecting this line, I really only wanted to collect my favorite characters, and Sagat is not one of my favorite characters. But I've kind of fallen in love with this toy line. They're so well made and just so well done that I've already started to buy more characters than I initially planned on. So, did I need Sagat? I don't know, but What the hell? Why not? Now, my first thought when I see these things is that they almost seem like too big. Maybe it's the boxes that are throwing me off, because the boxes are so much more, like, so substantially bigger than the previous ones. Like Blanka, I kind of understand. He's a big, thick, kind of like gorilla-like character, so it would make sense that he'd be bigger. I guess Sagat was bigger in the game, if I think about it. He had kind of a crouch stance and he was tall, but I wouldn't think he was this tall. Like, he looked kind of gigantic in here. It looks like he might be out of scale with the other figures. I grabbed a Ryu here, for example, and yeah, he looks really big. I don't remember him being this big in the game, but maybe that's a bit of an illusion. Maybe when I get him out of the packaging, it won't look so drastic. But anyway, so yeah, so Sagat and Blanka. We're going to take a look at these guys outside the packaging right now. Okay, I'm halfway through the unboxing process. I just wanted to quickly point out, because I sometimes don't get an opportunity to mention this when I review my Street Fighter figures. Not only are the boxes kind of cool because they look like arcade cabinets, but I love how each character has an individual background that matches their level from the game, because every character kind of had their own unique level. So there's like Blanka's kind of island, on a wharf with like a little hut there. And Sagat, it looks like it's in front of like some sort of statue in Asia or something. Anyway, pretty cool. Okay, that was a bit of an ordeal. These figures are packaged much more securely than the previous Street Fighter figures. There was like a whole extra plastic tray over top the front of the figure, and there was a lot of little plastic wraps. So yeah, it took me a few minutes to get those guys open. So anyway, yeah, here's Sagat. So just as I remember him, big, mostly naked guy with his kind of like boxing trunks on, and then his feet are wrapped, and his fists. So yeah, looking pretty good. He's got, lots of articulation, double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. He's got kind of butterfly joints on his chest here, which means his arms can kind of come in like this. He's got articulated toes, which I don't think any of the smaller figures don't have articulated toes. So it has like increased articulation. I don't know if it has really anything more increased than that. It looks to have pretty standard articulation otherwise. But yeah, so for accessories, we'll quickly talk about first. So you can see here he's got kind of like a standard kind of neutral face. Then he also has his angry face, which is pretty common. Most of these figures come with an angry face. He comes with an alternate set of hands. So right now he came with his fisted hands. These hands are kind of like his, grabbing kind of claw hands. He also has this blast effect. It's kind of a translucent orange fireball that he would shoot from his fists. And it also comes with a little display base, as most of the figures do, which you can just kind of plug the fireball into the display base. So if you display him on your shelf with his fists out like he's throwing his fireball, you can display this in front of him so it looks like it's coming out of his fist like that. Not bad. I like him. Like, he feels good. I think I like the angry face better on this guy. But yeah, so here's the elephant in the room. How big is he? He's big. Like, significantly bigger. And again, I don't know how accurate that is. I don't necessarily hate it, but like, this dude is clearly a giant. And I hope we don't get a lot more figures like this. Like, I think, like M. Bison in my mind was a bigger character, but we already got M. Bison, and even though he is kind of thicker, he's the same height as the other figures. So it seems a little weird to me that this guy's going to tower over M. Bison as well. Vega, he's due out soon. I can't recall if he's being sold as a deluxe or a regular figure, but if he's deluxe, I hope it's not because they've made him this same height, because even though I think Vega is supposed to be a taller, lankier character, again, not, freakishly gigantic like this. So this should really be an anomaly at this height. So looking at Blanka, Blanka is not as tall as him, although he's pretty close. But Blanka has a really big head of hair that this guy doesn't. So I think his deluxe price is justified a little bit more in the girth of him. He's like a wider figure. Like there's a lot more plastic in his torso than this guy would have. Blanka, I was really excited about. He was perhaps my favorite, or one of my favorites from the original games. He's got double jointed knees, elbows, all that stuff too. He does not have articulated toes, butterfly joints. So all that stuff is going to allow for a lot of posability. Some of his joints feel maybe a little stiff right out of the box. I don't want to mess with them too much. Maybe I need to heat this guy up a little bit with a hairdryer to loosen some of these joints. But I like him. He also has an alternate head. This one's got kind of an open mouth, kind of a growling face. I don't know which one I like better. They're both good, but I kind of like this one because this isn't really a neutral face. He's still snarling in this head here. He also has alternate hands. So I'm sure he has two, but now I can only find one at the moment. Maybe I dropped it. But yeah, so he's got kind of an open, kind of grabby hand, as well as his fists. And then he's got these two electric accessories. You can see these are pretty big. And by the look of them, like they have kind of a flat bottom and they're kind of arced. I think you're supposed to just stand them around him. I wasn't sure if they connected to his back or something somewhere. But at a glance, I don't really think so. I think you were probably just supposed to put him in his like squatting position from the game and then maybe display these around him. Anyway, he's pretty cool. Like I said, I love these figures from Jada Toys. They've been just killing it with these Street Fighter figures. Blanka does not disappoint. If anything, maybe he could be a little greener. These colors look pretty accurate, but I think maybe previous Blanka toys. Like I have a Blanka figure in my collection from like 20 years ago, which I think is a bit greener than this guy. I'll have to bring that one out for a side-by-side. Also, the Blanka G.I. Joe figure from back in the 90s, I know he was a lot greener and the hair was a lot more orange. This guy's a little more subtle in his color scheme, but that might be accurate to the screen. I don't really recall. But yeah, he looks good. I think this is an absolute home run. And Sagat is probably a home run too. I just don't care about the character as much, and he's not as interesting looking as this guy. So yeah, pretty cool stuff from Jada Toys. All right, so the other pre-orders that I picked up today was some Marvel Legends, and it was this 2-pack of X-23, or Wolverine, and Warpath. So these guys are from, like, I remember the original version of X-Force. I was collecting comic books back in the days, in the 90s, when they introduced X-Force, which had, like, Cable, and some of the New Mutants, like Cannonball, were on the team. This is from, like, kind of a later version, I think probably from around 2010, where they kind of made them more of, like, a stealth, covert operative team, and they all wore black and silver. So I actually already have 2 X-23 figures. I have one of her in this like exact outfit, but it's probably close to 10 years old by now. So this one I'm sure is better as far as sculpting and articulation and all that sort of stuff. And Warpath, I already have a Warpath figure, but I have him in his non-X-Force outfit. I have him in his kind of classic red and blue outfit. Now, when this pack went up for pre-sale, I obviously pre-ordered it as soon as I saw New Marvel Legends up. And when it comes to GameStop, which is where I do a lot of my pre-orders, I find they put new items up for pre-sale and then they sell out very quickly. And then when the figures actually come out months later, they quite often have additional ones that they put on the shelf. So, there was a good chance I would have got this when it came out today anyway. And who knows, maybe a couple of months down the road, I would have been able to get this even discounted. Because it is a pack that wasn't like vital to my collection. I probably could have waited to find it on discount. But I kind of impulsively pre-ordered it. I had debating on canceling it a couple of times. but I stuck it out, and here it is. And it looks like it's a good pack. Like both these figures at a glance look really good. It's just I've been trying to make some cuts, trying to get my spending a little under control. And I have no problem buying characters like Blanka and stuff. Like this is a character I wanted, so I pre-ordered this guilt-free. Sagat was a character I'm like, well, I wasn't originally planning on getting him. I don't love this guy, but it's a great toy, and I don't have any other toys of this character, so I don't really feel too bad about him. But did I need Warpath in his X-Force costume? Sure, it looks pretty different from the Warpath I already have, but I never really cared about Warpath that much as a character. It's not like he's one of my favorites. And X-23, I already have her in this exact outfit. It's just an old, kind of clunky figure. So, yeah, I maybe didn't need this, but it's cool. Now, the other thing, though, is I already have Deadpool in his X-Force costume from this era, and I have Wolverine, the male original Wolverine, in his black and silver costume. So, Deadpool, Wolverine, and I already had X-23. So when this pack was up for pre-order, I thought, well, it'd be cool to add Warpath. You know, I'm going to kind of build out my 2010 X-Force collection. But since this had gone up for pre-order months ago, they have since released Nightcrawler in his black and silver X-Force outfit, which I passed on. And then they've released Archangel in his black and silver X-Force outfit, which I passed on as well. I might still get those figures if they get a little discounted, but I already have Nightcrawler in my collection. I already have Archangel in my collection, and I just couldn't justify spending the money on them. I was maybe being a little better with my budgeting at that point when they went up for pre-order, but that just made me question all the more, like, should I be buying this? Neither of these are characters that I really need in my collection because I already have them. I don't know. Maybe once I open this up, I'll feel a little more justified if the figures are awesome. So why don't we find out right now? Okay, so I've got them out of the packaging. So here is Warpath. He looks great. He's big. He's muscular, as he should be. It's a really good head sculpt. I really like that. He looks pissed off. For accessories, he came with two kind of gripping hands, which would make sense because he's got fists on right now. But he also comes with his kind of iconic weapons are these two like knives. So he's all about kniving people up. So one of them can be sheathed on his back, or maybe they both can. This looks like it's a... Let's see how this works. Yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. So it's open at both ends, and you can sheathe both knives in the back. But if I wanted him to actually hold them, I would need to swap out his hands for the gripping hands. So yeah, I really like it. Now I will note. Now, by the way, he's got all the articulation you would want him to have. He's got double jointed knees, elbows. He's got the butterfly joints as well. A lot of that stuff is pretty standard nowadays. He's got good ab crunch. Sorry, good movement here. But I will notice he does have pins in his joints, in his knees and his elbows. That doesn't really bother me that much, but I know a lot of collectors, they really like buying new versions of characters to get rid of these pins. Pins are kind of old-fashioned at this point. And I am kind of surprised that here we are getting an update of a figure from a few years ago, and they didn't fix the arms and legs. These must be reused from another character. They might even be reused from the old Warpath. But yeah, I don't really care that much, but other people might care. So anyway, here is the old version of Warpath in the red and blue. So of the two figures, I definitely like the X-Force figure better. I think it's a cooler looking outfit. I think it's a cooler head sculpt. Yeah, the arms are the same. He's got different hands, obviously, because this one has bare hands. This guy's got gloved hands. But yeah, I think the legs, the torso is different because this guy only has an ab crunch, but he doesn't have like a mid torso split under his pecs, where this guy has both. So yeah, this guy does have some improved articulation. I think he has an improved sculpt, where they fixed it. Like, I like the gloves. I like the kind of more military boots instead of these like tasseled boots. I don't really love those big shoulder pads with the tassels either. So yeah, I think this figure is definitely better. Yeah, I'm happy that I got this guy. Now, as for X-23, so let's start off with, here's my figure from several years ago in her X-Force outfit. And then they released her sometime later in her Wolverine costume. And now I've got this new one from this pack. So it doesn't really make much sense to compare her to the Wolverine. The Wolverine, that's a completely different look. I'm glad I have that one as well. But very rarely do I retire any Marvel Legends from my shelf. Even when I get a new Spider-Man, I don't take an old Spider-Man off and put it in a bin or anything. Because in my mind, I'm like, these are Spider-Man from the Spider-Verse. So I can have room for multiple ones. Usually when I get a new version of a character, it's in a different outfit, like Warpath. So I keep them both out. With this X-23, I might actually retire this one from the shelf. Just because it kind of covers the same ground. And yeah, it's, now that I'm seeing them side by side, it's like no contest. The new one is better. The new one doesn't have pins in the knees like the old one did. They could share some parts even, but I don't think so, because the new one's got double jointed elbows. The old one did not. She just had single jointed elbows. I don't know. The legs could be the same. Even the torsos look pretty similar. But I think a big improvement is the head sculpt on this one. Now, I believe this one had two head sculpts. It's been so long, though, I can't recall, but I think she might have had an unmasked head and a masked head. This new one has an alternate head. So she's got a masked head, and she's kind of got like a screaming face, whereas this one's a little bit more neutral, or at least a bit of a scowl. I like them both, but I think I'll display her without the mask. She also has 4 alternate hands. So the hands that she was wearing in the package have her 2 claws coming out of them. So that's obviously how I'll display her. She's got to have her claws. She also has claws in her feet, which I think in the past. So this one did not have claws in her feet. And this Wolverine one, she had removable claws in her feet. So there's little holes in her toes. I took the claws out when I displayed her on my shelf. But this one here, it looks like she's just got the claws sculpted into her boots. And that's kind of a permanent fixture, which I like better. That's kind of one of her unique powers that, the other Wolverine doesn't have. And even though I guess it's good to have the idea of having them removable in case you don't want to display her with them, but I found they're just too easy to fall out and to lose because they're really small little pieces. So I like the idea that they're just built into the sculpt here. So yes, she's always going to have her claws out, but I'm fine with that. Anyway, cool figure. I like it. So yeah, that's it for Marvel Legends. So now I'm going to talk about some figures I've had for a little bit longer, but I've got some DC Multiverse from McFarlane Toys. Scratch that. I forgot. I have more Marvel Legends here. Those were just the Marvel Legends that I got today. I actually have some Marvel Legends from the last couple of weeks. So this here is a Walmart exclusive. Now, I don't know if it's any better in the United States, but here in Canada, I hate when Walmart announces that it's got an exclusive figure because they never carry them. Like, they're impossible to find on their website. You never find them in store. It's like they've got terrible distribution. So, this figure was Walmart exclusive. Now, if I never saw it and never got it, I wasn't going to lose any sleep. It wasn't really a figure I was actively seeking out. But I was in Walmart the other day, and I was shocked to find 2 Walmart exclusive figures on the shelf, and they had like 3 or 4 of each of them. The funny thing is, though, it was a Walmart that I don't usually go to. And like anytime I go into a Walmart, first thing I do, no matter what I'm there to actually buy, I have to go to the toy aisle first. So I check the action figures, and of course, there's nothing there. They don't carry any G.I. Joes. They don't carry any Marvel Legends. It's mostly just Jurassic Park and some old Transformers from months ago. So I was like, yep, nothing here. and I was ready to leave the toy department. The only reason we didn't leave immediately is my wife actually wanted to buy some slime to play with. So she was like, where do I find slime? And I was like, I don't know. So we started looking through the toy aisles. And over by the Nerf section, where they were selling Nerf guns, I found these Marvel Legends. So it was just two different figures, both of them Walmart exclusives. And it was Spider-Man 77. The other one was Spirit Spider, which is kind of a crossover between Spider-Man and Ghost Rider. I didn't buy that one. It's kind of neat looking, but I didn't need it. And arguably, I don't need this one either. I have a lot of Spider-Man Marvel Legends already, like dozens of them. And I've said on here many times that I'm more of a comic book collector. You know, I've been collecting comic books for 30 some years. I love comic books, and I'm happy to get as many Marvel characters as they'll give me based on the comic books. I don't really care about the movies and the TV shows as much. I do have quite a few of the MCU figures, but usually that's because you can't get that character in any other way. Like, for example, I bought all the MCU Eternal figures because I don't think Hasbro's ever going to make comic accurate versions of the Eternals. They've made one or two, but they're not going to go deep enough to give us Athena and who else is there? Whatever. So I don't usually buy the live action stuff. But this guy here, Spider-Man 77, part of it was just an impulse buy because I was thinking, I can't believe there's a Walmart exclusive on the shelf. If I don't buy this today, I'll probably never see it again, and I might regret it later. Because Spider-Man 77, it was before my time. But I did have a VHS tape that I bought as a teenager that had a few episodes of Spider-Man on it. And I don't remember being very good. Like, this was like years before the Tobey Maguire movie, obviously decades before. There was no CG. It was a guy in not the greatest looking suit, and he'd climb on walls, but he couldn't really swing around. It was pretty bad from what I remember. But it's still kind of fun. It's the kind of thing that you probably thought you would never get an action figure of, and here it is. It looks like a pretty basic Spider-Man. The only things that really stand out to make you realize this is the live action Spider-Man 77 is the belt and the eyes in the mask. Those are pretty distinct. They don't look like any other version of Spider-Man. He came with some, I think, alternate hands and some web accessories, and he came with just a long piece of white string to use as a web. It's pretty cool. One of his arms seems almost fused. I can't bend this arm at all. I might have to take a hairdryer to it. Normally, I don't have to do that with Marvel Legends, but I did break a figure recently, and now I'm really kind of gun-shy about trying to move this too much. So yeah, I might try it with a hairdryer, but it is a little frustrating when you buy a mainstream action figure like this and its joints don't move. But I'm not going to really hold that against it. That's probably a one-off. So anyway, there you go, Spider-Man 77. That's kind of cool. Okay, so the last two Marvel Legends I have to show you. This was a 2-pack. This came out at least a year ago. But it was a 2-pack that I was sort of wanted, but it definitely wasn't super important to me. So I kind of thought, I'm going to wait and see if I can get that on a discount later. And sure enough, I did. So I was looking on Amazon the other day, and this 2-pack of Marvel Legends, when you've got two standard size Marvel Legends in a 2-pack together, they usually retail for about minimum, I'd say $60, more like $70 up here in Canada. The figures individually usually sell for $30, $35. So I guess it makes sense that two of them together would sell for $70. Personally, I think it makes more sense if you're forcing somebody to buy two figures, you should get a bit of a discount. So maybe if they're $35 individually, a 2-pack should be more like $60, but whatever. That's not always the case. So when this pack came out, I think it was in the like $60 to $70 range, and just didn't really interest me. But every now and again, when I'm on Amazon, I will search it out, and I'll be like, let's see if anything has dropped in price. So anyway, I looked up this 2-pack on Amazon, and it was listed at $34. I took a screenshot of it. It was $34.20 for this 2-pack. You can't really see it there, but I'll put it in here. So it was $34.20 for this 2-pack, and I was like, ooh, that's the price of like one figure. So it's like half off. So then I clicked on it to look at it in more detail, and it said that it was $34.20, which was marked down 14% from its regular price of $39.65. So I was like, oh, so I'm really only saving $5 from what its standard price is. Now, I'm not sure when its standard price dropped from 70 all the way down to 39, but it didn't feel like I was getting as good of a deal anymore. Like at first I thought, oh, this thing's half off, but when it's like, if I don't buy this today, I can buy it a month or two from now and I'll still get it for just $5 more. I'll buy it for $40. So I was like, you know what? I probably shouldn't be spending this money impulsively on a set I didn't really want. So I just backed out. It was in my cart, but I was like, I'm not going to follow through with this order. But then I sent it to my brother because I thought maybe he'd be interested in this pack as well. And I said, not a bad price for this 2-pack. But when I clicked on the link to send it to him, it showed the price. And this is like an hour later. It was showing the price had gone up now, and it was $69.99. And I was like, what the hell? So that's great. That I understand sometimes Amazon's price drop for a limited amount of time and then they sell a certain number at that limit and the price goes back up. It's a pain in the ass, but it happens, and that's why I monitor Amazon regularly for things that I'm watching. So I was fine with this going back up in price, but like I wish they had said regular price $70, half off for $34, because then I would have bought it. I would have jumped on it knowing that I was getting a really good deal. But it said it was only $5 off, so I didn't buy it. And I was kind of kicking myself. I'm like, God damn it. Like now it's gone up to $70. But then I realized I went into my cart and it was still sitting there at the price of $34.99. So I hit, purchase now. I kind of thought it might say this item is no longer available at that price or whatever, but it didn't. It went through. So I was able to get these figures for $34.99 or whatever, $34.20, whatever it was, which is a bearable price. But yeah, these are really not that exciting figures. So the 2-pack was Rogue from the X-Men and Destiny, who is also an X-Men character. Now, I'm not a big X-Men fan these days. I read X-Men a lot as a kid in the 80s and 90s. That's because me and my brother collected comic books basically together. So I collected, Spider-Man, Silver Surfer. He collected X-Men, Captain America. So we read each other's stuff. But, since we kind of went our separate ways, I never really got into reading X-Men comics. So I'm decades behind with X-Men comic books. Anyway, this character of Destiny, she's been dead, I think, for like 20 years, although she was recently revived. But she was dead for most of the time that I was like reading X-Men comic books, and I just never liked her anyway. She's got kind of a weird, kind of this like sexy lingerie type costume with the cape. I think this body is probably the same one that comes on one of the Emma Frost figures because she's got a similar costume. But then she's got this weird kind of alien-looking head with the gold face and the kind of domed helmet. And it's just like, yeah, so you have this kind of weird, sexy body with this weird alien head. Plus, when she was unmasked in the comic books, she was revealed to be like an old lady with like white hair. So then it seemed extra weird. Like, why are you walking around in like your underwear like this? Just never cared for this character. But I am a huge Marvel fan. I love just adding new characters to my Marvel universe. Destiny is a character I've never had in toy format in any scale. So I'm happy to add a new character, even if I think she's one of the lamer characters. Now, Rogue is a cool character, but the thing is, I already have a couple of Rogues. Like this here is like the Jim Lee era Rogue. I also have, this is a more contemporary version of Rogue. And I like both these looks better than this. This is like Rogue's like first appearance outfit. This was back when she was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants before she joined the X-Men. And that happened before my time. When I started reading comic books in 86, Rogue was already an established member of the X-Men. So I have no nostalgic connection to this outfit. And even though I've read those issues because my brother collected them as back issues later, I always thought she looked pretty ugly with her like short, kind of poofy hair and this kind of bland outfit. So it was never a look that I really felt I needed an action figure of. But since I'm getting a figure that I never had and a new version of a character that I've never had this look before, I picked it up. Destiny, she's pretty much exactly what I would expect. I'm not that impressed by her. I think she had alternate hands, but like whatever. Rogue, I think, also had a pair of extra hands. There wasn't much in the way of accessories here. But I'm surprised how much I like this figure, actually. Um, as far as the face goes, like it looks better than my other two Rogues because these ones are both years old and they have, decent painted faces. But modern Marvel Legends, they use kind of like a face printing, like a digital printing technology, and it just looks like a lot more of a realistic face, and it's got a lot more just realistic details. And I really like the kind of sculpted smirk and everything on her. It looks a little, like she's a bad girl, and to my surprise, I like it. So yeah, not a bad pack. Anyway, I got to hurry up with this stuff. I have a lot more stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I ramble on as I always do. All right, so let's talk about some DC Multiverse figures. So the Superman movie, it just came out, which I don't know if we'll talk about it in a future episode, but me and my co-hosts Chad and Scott, we went and saw Superman together on opening night, and I think we all really enjoyed it, maybe to varying degrees, but I loved it, and I'm ready to see it again. It wasn't perfect, but I give it a 9 out of 10. Very, very good. And anyway, McFarlane Toys, he's always produced a lot of Superman figures, but I think he's kind of leaning into it a little bit more this year because of all the hype around Superman. And I'll admit, I'm kind of caught up in the hype myself. Some of these characters I maybe wouldn't have bought a couple of years ago, but I'm all like hopped up on Superman, and I was like, sure, I'll buy these figures. And not only will I buy them once, but I will buy them twice. So these first couple figures I'll show you, I won't talk about in a ton of detail because I already talked about them a little bit in my best action figures of the second quarter video that I posted a couple of weeks ago, because I have had these figures for a few weeks. So this here is Cyborg Superman from the Death of Superman storyline. So back in the 90s, DC killed Superman, and while he was dead, these 4 other imposter Supermen kind of rose up to take his place, and it was kind of a mystery, like, is one of these imposters actually Superman? And so, like, this Cyborg Superman one looked a lot like, so Superman, except half of him was metal, like a Terminator type of thing. This guy turned out to be an evil dude. He was not Superman. And I thought this was lame back in the 90s, but it has really grown on me over time, and I actually love this figure. I think McFarlane killed it on this guy. He's got the soft goods wired cape. The sculpted detail, the paint is so bright and sharp. I love it. Even the sculpting on his leg, he's got like this kind of hollowed out circle through his leg, which is a detail from the comic books that I'm surprised they actually touched on. It just looks really good. I love this figure. So yeah, but when I kind of turned on Cyborg Superman, when I kind of became a fan of him, was actually during when he showed up as a villain in the Green Lantern comic books years ago. And when he showed up in those books, he had a different outfit. So it was a little more like Red Lantern outfit instead of Superman. So it's the exact same figure. It's just instead of blue with a red cape, now he's red with like black cape. This one has a couple of slight paint changes. Like he's got a little bit of additional red paint on his chin. He's got his eyes painted a little differently and everything. But otherwise, same figure. Both are awesome. If you haven't already watched my best of the second quarter of 2025, check it out. Both of these figures that I got in June, I'd only had them for like literally days when I shot that video. And I was tempted to push both of these guys through to advance onto my video at the end of the year. I settled on just the blue and red one, but I love them both. Maybe equally. They're cool. So great job, McFarlane, on those. Now, another character I would not have thought I would buy is this guy, the Eradicator. So this was another one of the Superman imposters. And I did know his deal, but I had completely forgotten about it. Me and Chad were talking about it in an episode not long ago because I had recently got Steel. So that was another one of the Superman imposters. Chad had got that figure on a deep discount, and he gifted it to me, which was pretty cool. Thanks again, Chad. But so we were talking with the Death of Superman storyline, and I remember asking him, I'm like, yeah, and then there's that Eradicator guy. Like, what's his deal? He's just some douchey Superman with sunglasses on. He's kind of stupid. And I had to refresh my memory, and I went on Wikipedia, and I was like, oh, yeah. So this guy was basically an AI from Krypton, and he wasn't necessarily evil. He was just trying to uphold the same sort of values as Superman, except he would do it without the ethics of Superman. So he was maybe a little bit more violent and a little bit more cold. And yeah, the reason he wears the douchey sunglasses is because of the AI built itself a synthetic body, but it screwed up something with the eyes, and he had to wear these goggles to protect his eyes or something. Anyway, whatever. But it's a cool figure. And yeah, it's kind of the Superman hype that got me to buy this figure. Now you will notice he's got a rubber cape, so it's pre-sculpted and posed like that. You can't really do anything more with it. I think it does look cool blowing in the wind there, but I would have rather have a soft goods cape like Cyborg Superman has, and then I could just sculpt it, like pose it with the wire to look like this if I wanted to, because, you know, like if I wanted to play with this figure and have him flying around, you know, he's kind of, his cape's in kind of just this weird permanent half swept. Anyway, I just prefer the soft goods capes, but this doesn't look bad. Now this figure does look kind of goofy. He's got this really big chin and a really short neck, but since he's a synthetic person, I guess I can forgive him looking a little inhuman. So yeah, I like it. And not only did I buy one Eradicator, but I bought the Chase version too, which is the exact same figure, except this one looks like it's made of Crest Sparkle toothpaste. Now, I don't know if they still make that, but that's what I used as a kid, where it was like this, you know, bright blue gel with little sparkles in it. And that's what this guy is. He's a translucent plastic with blue little sparkles in there. His cape is kind of a purple translucent with sparkles in it. I don't know why. I don't know if this look is based on anything from comic books, but I don't think so. I couldn't find any reference for it. I think this was just Todd McFarlane having fun, saying, let's do something weird with this guy. It's a synthetic body, so I guess it can look like whatever I want it to. So yeah, it's got translucent blue hair, gold sunglasses. I don't know. I like it. I don't know why I needed it, but again, I'm just a little brainwashed by Superman hype right now. So all of those, pretty cool. Now I went to a toy show not too long ago. I've talked about it before on this channel. All of a sudden, there's these toy shows that have been popping up in my neighborhood. I've been collecting toys for decades, and we've never had toy shows. And now we have toy shows. So about every 3 months, yeah, we have one just down the road from me. So it's pretty cool. I go to every one, and I try and spend some money to support them. Although the toy shows are mostly, I find, like older toys. So a lot of loose, older figures. And that's not really something I'm actively collecting. I will buy some from time to time, but I buy new stuff. Marvel Legends, DC Multiverse, things like that. So when I go there and I'm trying to just buy something to be supportive, sometimes I'm grabbing stuff that I wouldn't normally pick up. But one thing I picked up at the last show was this DC Multiverse figure of Sinestro. And this guy was still new in package when I got him. And he was marked down. He was like $20, which wasn't a significant markdown, because if I bought this guy in the store, he'd probably be anywhere from $25 to $29 plus tax. So I got him for $20 flat, which, you know, it's better than nothing. But it's a good figure. I really like Sinestro. I don't really like this particular outfit on him that much, with the big shoulder pads, the cape. This is from his time when he was kind of possessed with the Parallax power. And Parallax is a big, like, dragon made out of yellow energy. Now, they packaged him with a little Parallax with that thing. He's pretty mini. You can kind of like wrap him around his arm or something. But I think I mostly bought it for the Parallax. I thought this was neat. So yeah, this is a good figure. It's just, it's not my favorite outfit. I would have rathered get a Sinestro. Like, here's one I have from years ago. This is from DC Direct. This is Sinestro in his Green Lantern costume from his time as a Lantern. This is still a great figure, but it's in a 6-inch scale. So if they had made like the 7-inch one in the green costume, might have been more tempted to get that one. And they may have even made that, but I'm just talking about, this was right in front of me at the toy show. This is Sinestro from the Superpowers line wearing his like origin first appearance costume. This is a little more of a classic outfit. That's a better outfit. And then here he is in his Yellow Lantern costume when he doesn't have the parallax entity like possessing him. And I like this outfit a lot too. So of all the Sinestros in my collection, I think this new one probably has the worst outfit of the bunch, but still a pretty solid figure. All right. Also at the toy show, there's this one lady there. She sells Funko Pops. She's got a whole bunch of them. And then also she has a little basket of loose mystery minis. And these are blind box things that Funko makes. And they have them for a bunch of different brands. Like I bought one of their Godzilla blind boxes. Actually, I bought a couple of them. So I have Godzilla and I have Anguirus in my collection. At one of the previous toy shows, I actually bought this Wolfman mystery mini from the same lady. This guy, I think, cost me $5. But when it comes to like blind box figures, there's a range in how rare the figures are. So something like this might have been like, you get one of him in every 5 boxes, but then you get another figure that's one in every 20 boxes. So he's that much rarer. So when people open up the figures and sell them loose, they tend to sell those rarer ones for higher prices, obviously. So this guy, I guess, was a common figure, so she had him for $5. But she has a bunch of them. Some of them are $10, some of them are $20. And at every toy show, these people bring back the same stuff over and over again that doesn't sell. And I noticed that she had the same mystery mini in that little basket for like the last 2 years. And I finally asked her, I'm like, look, you've got that at $20. Would you like kind of knock that in half? And she agreed to. So I bought this Cthulhu mystery mini. If you're not familiar with Cthulhu, he's like a monster created by H.P. Lovecraft. I just love the design of him with that kind of tentacled face and the wings and the tail. He's just kind of freaky looking. I have Cthulhu as Funko Pop. I have him as a reaction figure. And you'd think that would be enough. But no, I just thought this guy was cute. And now I can display him on my shelf with my other mystery minis. Another thing is, speaking of blind boxes, I buy the Godzilla blind boxes. And a while back, I was buying the Shogun Godzilla blind boxes, and I ended up getting a duplicate of the clear Shogun Godzilla. And it's a cool figure, whatever. I didn't mind having duplicate, but I posted it on Instagram, and I said, I guess I have this guy in duplicate now. And one of my friends, Glenn, he happens to be one of the vendors who's always at these toy shows. And he messaged me and he said, hey, I'll buy that off you if you don't want to have the duplicate. And I said, okay, I'll bring it with me to the next toy show. So I brought it, and I saw him there, and he's like, how much do you want for it? And I said, you don't have to buy it off me, but let me look through your loose G.I. Joes, and maybe I'll grab a couple. So he sells all kinds of G.I. Joes from all the eras, going back to the 80s, right up to the modern stuff. And he just has them loose in little baggies, and he's selling them from like, $5, $10, it varies. Anyway, I found 2 figures from the early 2000s. Now, this is not an era that a lot of people love of G.I. Joe, but I have a real fondness for it. Because the G.I. Joe line that I collected as a kid in the 80s, it, expired in 1994. And then G.I. Joe was essentially dead for almost a decade. A couple figures trickled out here and there, but they really revived it, in force in 2002. And they kind of changed the way they designed the figures. So fans called it the new sculpt era, which doesn't really make sense anymore because now we're talking, 20 years ago. So let's call it Generation 2. So Generation 2 of G.I. Joe lasted from 2002 into like 2006, maybe the beginning of 2007. And I bought a lot of those figures. Some of them are pretty like poorly designed and the proportions are off, but I still kind of love them. It was when G.I. Joe still felt like they were made for kids, which I actually like. Now, they weren't made for kids in that they had a bunch of light up accessories and silly play features. I just mean that they were durable, they were colorful, they were fun, they didn't have a million little tiny pieces that could fall off. Even though I really liked the G.I. Joes that they made after Generation 2, which we'll call Generation 3, which was like the 4-inch figures, but they started coming with more accessories than you knew what to do with, and they had all their web gear came off, and it wasn't easy to play with them. So yeah, I really like how toyetic those early 2000 G.I. Joes were. But at the time, they were pretty hard to get because nobody here carried them in Canada at retail. I had to buy them all on the secondary market, either from eBay or a couple dedicated G.I. Joe websites at the time. And right as Generation 2 was winding down and the figures were getting even harder to find, they put out a 6-pack of figures, which I really wanted at the time. But before I had a chance to seek it out, they had switched over to the new 4-inch Generation 3 figures, which I kind of went all in on. And once I went in on the Generation 3 stuff, I kind of boxed up my Generation 2 stuff. And so then this pack didn't seem quite so important anymore. But it was pretty cool at the time. So it was a 6-pack called the Steel Brigade versus the Cobra Plague. So if you're familiar with Steel Brigade, it's like kind of the sub-team within G.I. Joe, where it's kind of a nameless troopers. But when it was introduced in the 80s, the idea was you would write into Hasbro and you would give them your name and you could pick a file name. I never actually did it as a kid, but when I wanted to as a kid, I always thought I would use the name Blackout. There later was a G.I. Joe actually named Blackout. But anyway, at the time, so you got to pick your own name and pick your own like military specialty and stuff. And they would send you a custom file card with this mail away figure of the Steel Brigade. And it was supposed to be you. So that was the whole concept behind Steel Brigade, which was pretty cool. Anyway, so they made the 6-pack, which had 3 Steel Brigade members, and it had 3 members of the Cobra Plague, which was also a cool concept, which was introduced in the comics published by Devil's Due at the time. And what's cool about that is there wasn't always a whole lot of synergy between the comic books and the toys, and this was one of those rare examples where what we were reading in the comic books, like right now, we're now getting into toy format, which is really cool. I wish that happened more often. But basically, Cobra decided to make an elite team out of their various Viper squads and call it the Plague, and it would kind of be the counterpoint to the original 13 G.I. Joes. So this 3-pack, we got 3 Plague members, which was Gallows, Guillotine, and Grimskull. Now, those are the only members we got because Generation 2 wrapped up after that. And when they started Generation 3, they kind of started right back with the main characters again. And we've never seen any other members of the Plague get released. I'd really love to see all 13 members released someday. But anyway, I never had any of them. But I managed to get one of them. So when I was buying or picking figures out from Glenn, I said, I'll take this guy. So this here is Grimskull. He's very cool looking. He's got mostly a Snake Eyes body, I think, from the neck down. And he's got this new original head, which kind of looks like a Steel Brigade helmet. And it's like half painted yellow and stuff. I think it's very cool. So yeah, Grimskull. Like 20 years late getting this guy, but I'm glad I did. And the other one here was this G.I. Joe. So he's one of the 3 Steel Brigade members. I think his name was Red Zone. I forget now. But anyway, what's cool about this guy is, like, he's fine figure. There's nothing super great about him. But you can take his Steel Brigade helmet off, which you couldn't do with the vintage Steel Brigade figures because it was supposed to be you underneath. But obviously Hasbro didn't know what you looked like, so they kept his skin covered so it could have been any skin tone and any face underneath that helmet. But this one here, you pop the helmet off, and there's actually a little dude with like a chin strap beard. And this is actually sculpted to look like a G.I. Joe fan, Luke Ellison, who won a contest at the time. So this is really like the Steel Brigade figure. They really upped their game because this really is the G.I. Joe fan in action figure form. So of the 3 Steel Brigade figures, this one here, the Luke Ellison figure, and by the way, I have no idea who Luke Ellison is, but I just love the fact that, some real guy out there got made into a G.I. Joe figure with his name on the file card. And so this is a pretty cool little part of G.I. Joe history, I think. So I'm happy to get him. Anyway, so I said to Glenn, you can keep the Godzilla. I'll take these 2 guys, which he was selling, I think, for, I don't know, $5 or $6 each. And he said, no, grab a third one. There was no other G.I. Joes I really wanted, but I decided to grab this guy. Now, this might seem like a little odd choice, but this here is a bear from Fisher-Price's Little People collection. Now, some of my earliest action figures when I was a kid were from Fisher-Price because they had a line called Adventure People, which were 3 3/4 inch figures. They moved to like basically Kenner Star Wars figures. They had 5 points of articulation, but they were just people, like civilians. And so I had one that was like a race car. I had one that was like a boat that came with divers and it came with a shark. I had a deep sea diver with one of those big old timey helmets on him, and he came with a sunken treasure chest and an octopus. I loved those figures. But the animals that came with those sets were not articulated. But also from Fisher-Price, if we go, because I guess you could say Adventure People were probably made for, I don't know, let's say kids that were like 5 years old and up. But if you want to go for kids younger than that, they had their Little People collection, which was just these little peg people. So just like a green peg with a little face on it, and then you could buy little cars to put them in and stuff like that. And the sets that I had as a kid for Little People was kind of a circus train, and so the train car had like one had a lion in it. It was like a cage. One of them had a giraffe in it, so the giraffe's neck came out of the top of the train car. And I loved those little animals that came with the Little People. So I thought I had more of them than I do, because I also had a farm, which was like a barn that opened up and had a bunch of farm animals. So I used to have these little action figures of a horse, a sheep, a cow. I had the lion, I had the giraffe, I had the monkey, all from the train car. Anyway, I went back to look and see what I have still in my miscellaneous toy bin, and I happen to still have my Little People lion from when I was a kid. So you can see, even though the Little People weren't articulated, the figures were. So his legs move, and his head goes up and down, and his tail's articulated. It's pretty cool. And the other one I have is this like orange bear. So yeah, even though these are children's toys from 40 years ago, I just have a real nostalgic connection for these things. And when I saw that Glenn had another bear, which was a different shade of brown than the one I have, and he was just telling me to grab something for free, I thought, yeah, I'm going to grab this bear. You know, he's in pretty good shape as far as like the paint's not all rubbed off of him and everything. And yeah, he's just kind of a fun, nostalgic thing. So yeah, and very quickly, there was another guy selling toys. I think he was asking $2 a piece for them, or 3 for $5. So I saw this Raphael figure, and he's wearing like a motorcycle helmet with like this vest. I thought this was kind of cool. This is a figure from the 2012 Ninja Turtle line, which I quite liked. I have the 4 turtles from that line, but just like the standard turtles, not in any other silly little outfits. But there was something about this Raphael in the helmet that I thought was pretty cool for $2. So I said, I'm going to get this guy. And he said, you sure you don't want any other ones? 3 for $5. So I looked through it, and I found the Donatello from the same kind of collection. It doesn't speak to me quite as much. I don't really like the like half pants that he's wearing, and the goggles on his head doesn't look quite as cool as the red helmet here. So yeah, I got the 2 turtles, and when I needed something else, I grabbed this Green Lantern little figure with his glider. And when I grabbed this, I thought I might actually already have this toy at home, but when I got home and compared it to the figure I was thinking of, it's actually different. So yeah, this is from the Marvel Universe line of 3 3/4 inch figures that I collected for a good couple of years. This here I think is more from one of the like probably a more modern figure from one of the more kitty based lines, because it has less articulation than that other one. But it's actually a really good sculpt, and the Green Goblin is one of my favorite Marvel characters. So I thought, yeah, for less than $2, why not? And very, very quickly, the last thing I have here that I'll talk about is some more Ninja Turtles. I think it was in 2023 when the newest animated movie, Mutant Mayhem, came out. Me and Chad went and saw that movie. We both really liked it. He's a bit more of a turtle guy than I am, I think. And so he went out and he bought all the figures after watching the movie. The figures were actually pretty affordable at only $14.99, and I was quite tempted to get them myself. But again, the little budget part of me was like, I already have so many versions of Ninja Turtles. I don't really need this new version. It's clearly geared towards kids today, and I don't really need to be a part of it. I can enjoy the movie without needing the figures. So I resisted. But I went into the dollar store the other day, and they had all 4 of the Ninja Turtles from Mutant Mayhem for $5 a piece. So I thought, you know what, for $5, I might as well add these guys to my collection. So yeah, there's Michelangelo, complete with his nunchucks. There's Leonardo with his swords. And like I like these guys, they're all different color purple or different color greens. The designs are kind of unique. Like Raphael's got the full bandana instead of just the mask, which is cool. And then Donatello. Now this one has glasses, which I don't necessarily love Donatello wearing glasses, but whatever. It makes sense. He's the nerdy guy in the team. It's just I didn't grow up with a Donatello wearing glasses. So yeah, these figures are cool. $5, a fun little pickup. Although I will note they feel kind of cheap. So I guess I got what I paid for. Like, for example, Raphael's hands keep falling off, and it's no wonder. Like, it's a really, really shallow little peg there. So it's barely got anything to hang on to when you plug that hand on. They're a little off balance because you can see their legs are all pretty skinny. They're not very well articulated, like there's no rocker joints in the ankles or anything. So it's hard to get them to stand up in a position where they're constantly falling down. So anyway, but whatever. They were $5 a piece. That's it. All right. So I'm sorry that this has gone on probably 10 or 15 minutes longer than I wanted it to, but it was a lot to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this miscellaneous episode. I've got these Transformers to review soon, so stay tuned for that. Please make sure to like and subscribe, leave me comments. And also, just in the past week, I started doing YouTube shorts. If you're one of my subscribers, you might have seen them popping up in your newsfeed. It's just something new I'm trying out. So check them out if you haven't. Let me know if you like them. I've just kind of been doing this little format where I pick a figure and I say the best thing about this figure is this and the worst thing is this. And but I don't know, maybe I'll change that up. That's just kind of what I decided on to get started. But do you like them and you want to see more of those? Let me know. So anyway, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, watch my shorts, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.